I saw an interview with you on YouTube. It's about the only time I go on the computer is to explore YouTube. Do you do that a lot? I mean, is YouTube...
I do sometimes when I'm having the Kleenex parties.
When you're alone and... I was looking at a YouTube video of you. Now correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and I'm sure it's not accurate, but it was profoundly moving. You were doing an interview. You're on a chair in what looked like a hallway in South America, I believe. And it was an interviewer who was off camera who was talking to you about love and talking to you about the highs and the lows, the extremes. And you spoke for about 10 minutes about the subject.
I think I was in Portugal.
Portugal, which is like being in South America.
It is. I was in Lisbon.
And you recall the interview that I'm referencing?
I think I do. I think I was wearing a blue velvet jacket, and I was in a white hallway, and I was in Lisbon.
Well, for me, I don't really believe that life is just happiness, and I think that true beauty has a sadness to it. You know, I think the reason a sunset is beautiful is because there's some feeling of the passage of time, and you feel like life is, you know, passing, which is, it's not just a happy feeling. I think true beauty has to incorporate, you know, sadness in it. So I don't really even believe in happy-go-lucky concepts. I think these are things that are only used to advertise products and commercials, and it's a fantasy. But I think reality is, you know, more melancholy.
Would you please, for the benefit of those people who were not around for that interview, to discuss that thesis that you have about these extremes of being very happy, very sad, as you described it to that interviewer?
Well, honestly, I don't really remember what I said, but I do remember the interview. And I remember that I was touring an album called Friendly Fire, which I released a few years ago. And the whole subject of that record was the impossibility of love and how the pursuit of happiness through a relationship with another person is pointless. And I really believed that at the time. But since then, I've changed my mind. So I can't really speak about those things honestly, because I don't really feel the same way anymore. But I think in those days I used to think that that being unhappy was sort of the only truth that one could have. I was a pessimist, actually. But I think since then I realized that it is possible to be happy, actually. It's just, maybe it's more difficult and it's more work to actually try to be happy. It's kind of easier to just accept unhappiness and make the best of it. But to actually, you know, pursue your dreams and try to be satisfied actually takes a lot more work. So I think the reason I felt that way is because I was younger and lazier, I think. But I think now that I'm older, I'm more willing to do the work that it takes to be happy.
Is it doing the work it takes to be happy, or is it simply the fact that somewhere between that interview and today you found a woman who you fell in love with, and that took you out of the headspace of nihilism and romantic pessimism and placed you in a state where you embraced the concept of love?
Well, I think on some level there's a lot of just sheer coincidence and synchronicity or just chance. But I think on another level, the reason I found things that made me happy, I mean, not just a relationship, but also, you know, a lifestyle and a work method, is because I was ready for it. You know, I feel like I was mentally prepared and open to positive things in my life, whereas before I think I wasn't. So it's kind of a cliche, but I really believe that you get what's coming to you, and so you sort of create, you create the energy around you that brings good or bad things, So I think at the time when I made Friendly Fire, my best friend Max had just died tragically in a motorcycle accident, and that was a circumstance that sort of reinforced my pessimism. And it wasn't until I got to a place in my life where I was sort of satisfied with myself and what I was doing and feeling kind of good about myself that good things started to happen after that. So I think the good things that happened were a result of work that I did on my own to be less insecure, basically. And when you're less insecure, women like you more, basically.
How secure do you feel tonight, at this level, at this stage in your life? You just recently had a birthday.
Well, I think underneath, there's always a level of insecurity with almost anybody. But if I step away from my life now and try to look at the big picture, I think overall I'm a lot happier and more confident than I used to be. But I do think that life in general gets easier as you get older.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I don't think, well, let's put it this way. Life might not get easier, but it's easier to deal with it because you have more experience and things are less surprising and you have more experience to draw from when you want to deal with the things that might come up. So I think overall in the big picture, every year has gotten easier for me mentally, My mental state has sort of calmed a little bit. I mean, of course life is still overwhelming and stressful, but for the most part, I feel a lot better now than I used to.